present. Senator Joseph Victor Ejercito. Good morning, sir. Senator Sonny Angara. Good morning, sir. Senator Grace Po. Morning, sir. Senator Chiz Escudero. Morning, sir. I would also like to acknowledge the presence of our resource persons today, Secretary Laila De Lima. Good morning, Madam Secretary.
Good morning, sir.
The Director General of the Technology Resources Center, Mr. Dennis L. Cunanan. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
And of course, yung suki natin dito sa Blue Ribbon, Mr. Benhur. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
At this point, the Chair wishes to make an opening statement. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished colleagues, once again, I thank all of the resource persons present here for joining us in today's hearing. Katulad ng lagi kong sinasabi sa umpisa ng bawat hearing, nagpapasalamat ako sa inyo, hindi lamang para sa sarili ko at sa mga kapwa senador ko. Nagpapasalamat din ako sa inyo sa ngalan ng mga kababayan natin, sa mga kapwa natin Pilipino na patuloy na umaasa na makikita natin ang katotohanan sa issue na ating iniimbestigahan. Today, we have convened specifically to hear the testimony of Mr. Dennis Cunanan, former Director General of the Technology Resource Center. Bago natin pakinggan si Mr. Cunanan, lilinawin ko muna ang mga ilang bagay. Una, ang pagdinig na ito ay bahagi ng patuloy nating paghahanap ng sagot sa tanong natin at tanong ng mga kababayan. Ano ba ang nangyari? Bakit nangyari? Sino ang dapat managot sa nangyari? At ano ang dapat nating gawin para hindi na maulit? Para hindi na maulit yung nangyari. Ang sasabihin mo sa pagdinig na ito, Mr. Cunanan, ay mahalaga sa pagsagot ng mga tanong yun. Pangalawa, dahil importante ng Blue Ribbon Committee ang sagot sa mga tanong na iyon, inaasahan natin na kayo po, Mr. Cunanan, ay magsasabi ng tama, tapat, at sapat. Walang labis, walang kulang. Inaasahan namin na hindi ka magpaligoy-ligoy at hindi mo pa ikutin ang mga mambabatas na nandito. Pangatlo, pagkatapos na madinig ng komite ang testimonan ninyo, Mr. Cunanan, pag-aaralan namin ang halaga at kabuluhan nito sa pagsagot sa mga tanong na nabanggit ko. May kabuluhan lamang at halaga ito kung maipapakita sa Blue Ribbon Committee na ang inyong testimonya ay tama, tapat, at sapat. True, truthful, and complete. Tandaan natin ang tatlong bagay na ito. Let us now commence with the hearing. Just one administrative matter. Mr. Cunanan, we are in receipt of the committee is in receipt of your request for so-called legislative immunity. We will grant you the same protection and benefits we have granted to Mr. Benhur during the hearing held on the 12th of September 2013, subject to the approval of the Senate President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Mr. Cunanan, have you already taken your oath before?
Yes, sir, I did.
Yes, so just be reminded that you are still under oath.
Mr. Chairman, just one administrative matter. When I inquired from the committee as regards the affidavit executed by Mr. Cunanan, I was informed that there was such an affidavit dated February 20, if I'm not mistaken. May I inquire from either Secretary De Lima or Mr. Cunanan, did he execute a prior affidavit in response, presumably, to the complaint filed by the DOJ before the Ombudsman? Because the deadline of that, I presumed, last time in November or December for them to file counter affidavits, given that he is one of the respondents in that case. Ma'am?
Good morning, Your Honor. Insofar as DOJ is concerned, we have only one sworn statement from Mr. Cunanan, the one executed on February 21, 2014, and the one submitted by Mr. Cunanan to the Office of the Ombudsman.
May I inquire from Mr. Cunanan, did you submit an earlier affidavit, presumably in compliance with the period provided for by the Ombudsman for you to answer before you applied for inclusion in the WPP?
Your Honor, this is the only affidavit that we submitted. Particular to the Ombudsman, the lawyers requested for extension of filing of
So wala pa ko kayong sinamitan. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. And just one more matter. I just received right now a set of questions from Senator Bong Revilla, who is requesting that the chair ask the questions to Mr. Cunanan. At any rate, we will ask this later on. Okay, the first senator online is Senator Chiz-Escudero. Senator?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My questions are directed more actually at Secretary De Lima, in part to Mr. Cunanan and also to Mr. Benhur. Just so that we would understand the direction that the DOJ is taking. First question, Mr. Cunanan, base po sa affidavit ninyo, wala kayong kinumit na krimen. Nabasa ko yung affidavit ninyong mahaba eh. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
So based on the affidavit that you executed on February 20, you did not commit any crime under or insofar as the PDAF scam, so-called PDAF scam is concerned.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yun din yung pagkakabasa ko, wala pong krimen kayong ginawa. Secretary De Lima, why was he charged? I presume the DOJ prepared or helped in the preparation of the February 20 affidavit. In his affidavit, he did not admit to the commission of any crime whatsoever. In fact, he was conscientious in dealings as TRC chair or head. Ma'am, please.
To answer your question, why was Mr. Dennis Cunanan included in the charges before the Ombudsman, the first and the second batches of PDAF cases, is because, Your Honor, as the then Deputy Director General of TRC, and the TRC being one of the 4 identified implementing agencies through which these PDAF funds were coursed, and also using NAPOLA's related NGOs, we gathered from the evidence from DBM, from COA, and also it's admitted by Mr. Cunanan now in his sworn affidavit that there were occasions when he had to sign certain documents like vouchers, checks. He was saying that in the absence of then Director General Ortiz, who is a co-respondent in the PDAF cases, he would do or undertake the processing of these. And also, Your Honors, in the affidavit of Mr. Benhur, he had some statement there about officials of these various implementing agencies, including TRC, he believes to be allegedly receiving commissions, but that is something that is now being denied by Mr. Cunanan.
Pupunta na nga po ako doon precisely, Secretary de Lima. Ayon kay Dennis Cunanan, hindi siya nakatanggap maski na piso o 5 duling mula dito sa PDAF. Subalit ayon sa affidavit ni Benhur, particularly paragraph 126 of his September 12, 2013 affidavit, if I may quote, tanong, may nabanggit ka na may 10% na napupunta sa presidente o head ng agency. Sino itong tinutukoy mo? Sagot, ang alam ko, nakita kong tumanggap sila Alan Havellana ng NABCOR, Dennis Cunanan at Antonio Ortiz ng TLRC, etc., etc. How would you reconcile that, Madam Secretary?
Well, the of Benhur Luis says that there was a receipt of kickbacks of the named officials. And of course, in the process of vetting Mr. Cunanan in his application as a possible or provisional state witness, we had to ask the same question, and he is denying it. So I guess the best persons who can really explain all of these things are both gentlemen, Benhur and Mr. Cunanan. If there is any explanation for what appears to be contradictory statements.
Benhur, may we hear from you? Nabasa ko kanina yung sinabi mo sa sinumpang salaysay mo.
Yes, sir. Sa JLN, pumunta po kasi si Sir Dennis Cunanan sa JLN Corporation sa office, sa Unit 2502. Sa conference room sila together with, actually I do not know personally Dennis Cunanan. Alam ko lang siya as being the deputy. Hindi ko siya nakita na met personally. It was one of the Napoles, yung senior ko, si Miss Evelyn De Leon, siya yung nakipag-usap kay Mr. Dennis Cunanan. We call him Sir Deku. So,
Yun din ang pagkakakilala ko sa kanya, Deku.
opo, so Sir Deku. So, nung pumunta po si Sir si Sir Deku po sa conference room, so, doon po siya hinatid ni Miss Evelyn De Leon. And pumunta na po si Miss Janet Napoles, yung aking boss. So, instruction of Miss Janet Napoles to prepare, I remember the amount which tinignan ko sa aking records ng financial, the amount which is 960,000. So, dinala ko po doon sa conference room. Since hindi yung personally na nakipag-usap ako kay Sir Deco, kasi it was Miss Evelyn De Leon, I handed the money to Miss Evelyn De Leon doon sa conference room. So, ayun po, yun ang nangyari.
Yun ang nangyari sa pagkakaalala mo. At yun ang rason kung bakit nasulat mo yan sa affidavit mo.
Sir. And in my records, based on the voucher, as far as I remember, it is parang ang SOP.
Mr. Cunanan, would you like to comment?
Yes, Your Honor. I suppose the records of Benhur are okay, no? Particular to that aspect. Because as we can see, kung makikita po natin, yun ho ay mga utos sa kanya, no? At tingin ko, kung sa position ko po una, hindi po ako ang head of agency at that time. Ang napagbibigyan ho ng supposed to be ng mga commissioner, yung mga head of agency ang binabanggit. Pangalawa, base ho dun sa diskusyonan, kung tinanggap ko at dinala ko at binitbit ko man yung kung ano man yung sinasabi na halaga, particular dun sa transaksyon na nababanggit, siguro po hindi siya equivalent dun sa binabanggit na kung ano man yung mga natatanggap ng mga heads of agencies. Pangatlo, Your Honor, in the course of my actions, kung may natanggap po ako, hindi siguro ako magbabalidate ng mga dokumento. Pangalawa, kung may natanggap po ako, siguro ako pa mismo ang magmamadali para maproseso ang mga dokumento. At ang kaduluduluhan po nun, Your Honor, kung ako accomplish dun sa mga issues na nangyayari, bakit po nung ako na ang naging head of agency, pina-verify ko uli itong mga NGOs na to to the extent na inabutan po na na-blacklist ko yung mga yan. At yung pagkaka-blacklist ko sa kanila, Your Honor, hindi naman ho din ginawa lang namin, kundi sinabit pa namin yan sa COA at in-acknowledge ng COA na isang affirmative action na ginawa ng aming ahensya at naging triggering factor din dun sa kanilang special audit. At yun yung isang naging lead dun sa ginawa nila. At mapapatunayan ho siguro ni Benhur na mismong yung kanyang NGO na nire-represent, binlacklist ho namin yun. Ano man ho sabihin, ito yung tinutukoy nung abogado ko na mismong sa loob ni ata nila ng kanilang organisasyon may mga bukulan na nangyayari. So parang may gamitan ng pangalan, may sitwasyon na ganon. Pero ako ho, with the blessings of God and my family, in my honor, in my name, kung pwede kong maisulong, kung meron man ho ako, bakit hindi ko aaminin ngayon? Sa sitwasyon po kung nasaan ako ngayon, alam po ni Secretary De Lima yon, alam po ng napakadali na pong gawin yan ngayon. Dahil ito na ho yung sitwasyon para maabsuelto at lahat. Pero sa konsensya ko po, sa konsensya po ng pamilya ko, mahirap po umamin ng hindi totoo.
So you deny it, Mr. Cunanan?
Opo, Your Honor.
Thank you. Just a few more points, Mr. Chairman. Secretary De Lima, I heard you mention a while ago that you have provisionally accepted Mr. Cunanan to the WPP. Is that correct, ma'am?
Yes, Your Honor. Just like, Ms. Benhur Louis and the other whistleblowers belonging to the first set, and just originally, Mr. Benhur Louis was provisionally accepted, and later.
But now he is part.
He is already a state witness, and he is fully covered by the WPP as affirmed by the Office of the Ombudsman. Now, with respect to Mrs. Ruby Tuason and Mr. Cunanan, we provisionally covered them under WPP. Provisional because the final say as to whether or not they will be and they can be used by the Ombudsman as state witnesses in the course of the trial before the Sandigan Bayan if it is filed, if those cases are filed or ultimately filed with the Sandigan Bayan. That's why it's provisional coverage lang po.
Ma'am, actually, that's what I don't understand. Please help me understand it. There is no such thing as provisional admission under the WPP law. It's either you're admitted or you're not.
Strictly, yes, sir. Under the WPP law, there is no provisional coverage.
Yes.
But insofar as the processes, the internal processes as well as the implementation of the WPP law by the DOJ, it is actually normal for us to issue first provisional coverage subject to the execution or issuance of the certificate of materiality by the handling prosecutor. In this case, Your Honor, since it's not the DOJ, which is strictly or technically the prosecutor in these cases, we are in fact investigators also, fact finders, along with the NBI, and the NBI being a complainant before the Ombudsman. And it's the Ombudsman and special prosecutors of the Ombudsman who will ultimately be the prosecutors in these cases when they reach the Sandigan Bayan. So that is also the requirement, subject to the issuance of certificate of materiality by the Ombudsman special prosecutors after they shall have evaluated the merit of their status.
Ma'am, as I understand the WPP, well, perhaps you might want to include the provisional acceptance or admission in your IRR. But under the WPP, nakalagay po doon, pag tinanggap nyo na sila, effect of admission, the prosecutors shall take note of the admission, and if the cases have not yet been filed, will no longer file a complaint against. So, if essentially, may administrative immunity na pong binibigyan. Hindi state witness ang tawag doon. Kasi pag state witness, desisyon na po ng korte yun. May I ask, in the case of Benhur Louis, he was the root of all of this. Sa kanya po nang galing lahat to. correct me if I'm wrong, he was charged with the office of the Ombudsman.
No, Your Honor. Insofar as NBI is concerned, we did not include Mr. Benhur and the original set of whistleblowers. But I'm not sure whether the FIO of the Office of the Ombudsman, which is also a complainant in separate cases against the same respondents, have included them as respondents when these charges were filed before the panel of special prosecutors handling the preliminary investigation.
Benhur, respondent ka ba sa Ombudsman case, sa PDAF scam?
Isinama po kami, tapos ano po,
Alam ko nga, kasama ka eh.
Opo, kasama po kami sa ombudsman.
Sino nagsasabi laban sa'yo?
Ano sir, bali ang pagkaalam po namin, kami mga witness, kasama kami, tapos gagawin po kami yung as witness doon sa ano po. Yun ang pagkaalam.
Because, actually,
yun ang understanding ko, sir.
Actually, yun din ang intindi ko. Kinakabahan lang ako, Benhur, dahil administratively, the DOJ can decide not to file cases against you anymore. In fact, kung may MOA sa Ombudsman, that can be agreed upon with the Ombudsman. Kapag ka ginagamit ang salitang state witness, ibig sabihin yan, korte ang magdedesisyon. Iba ang requirement ng admission sa WPP sa requirement ng admission as a state witness. So, ang lalabas dyan, kung hihilingin pa lang ng abogado ng Office of the Special Prosecutor sa Ombudsman at discharge kayo ng Sandigan Bayan, posible na sa dulo, magsabi ang Sandigan Bayan na, uy, teka, halimbawa lang, may prior conviction ka pala ng crime involving moral turpitude, hindi ka qualified maging state witness. All of these could be possibly avoided if charges will no longer be filed or dropped as against either Benhur, Cunanan, Ruby Tuason, or others who have stated the truth with respect to what they know in this PDAF scam. Ma'am, please.
Yes, Your Honor. As a matter of fact, I know that there has been a plunder case filed against Benhur et al. By Senator Bong Revilla, but it was already dismissed by the Office of the Ombudsman. That is our information. But I have not seen any document with respect to that. But it was, I think, announced that that case was dismissed, citing the WPP coverage of Benhur et al.
Kaya nga po,
Immunity.
kung WPP covered na sila, they will no longer be charged. That's with respect to the DOJ. Now, you have a MOA with the Ombudsman. If you admit, as you have admitted Benhur, and if you admit later on, ma'am, Dennis Cunanan, will that also be adopted by the Ombudsman? Meaning to say, hindi na po sila kakasuhan. Early on, hindi na hindi yung akusado pa rin sila, tapos hihilingin pa lang sa Sandigan Bayan after the case is filed for them to be discharged as a state witness. Again, as I said, the requirements for admission to WPP are totally different from the requirements to be discharged as a state witness.
That is also our position, Your Honor. And I think that is the position of the Ombudsman. I'm not sure whether she was quoted right in one newspaper item trying to clarify that this WPP covered witnesses are immune witnesses, but they are not necessarily yet state witnesses. That's what.
Actually, I heard that interview to ma'am, but I don't know where she got the statement or the phrase immune witness from. That's not found in any of our rules, na immune witness. That's the first time I heard of that.
Well, it's maybe because the law says immunity from prosecution when a witness is covered, especially if fully covered already.
If I remember correctly, the wetting cases against former President Estrada, the prosecutor or his lawyers at that time used PD 749, which gives immunity to the bribe giver if he testifies. That's a law that says that a bribe giver who so testifies shall be immune from prosecution and shall not be convicted if a case has been filed against him. Can we not use that same PD? There is a precedent when it was used to protect a witness without going through the long process, of having to ask the Sandigan Bayan to be discharged as a state witness, provisional, return, actual admission. Can the DOJ consider that, please?
Yes, of course, Your Honor, but I don't think we don't even have to invoke that PD because we have the WPP law, and we know the consequence of the acceptance under the WPP. But we are just very conscious about the fact that since it's the Ombudsman that will be ultimately prosecuting this case, we would want the Ombudsman also to have the final say or approval of the status of our proposed state witness, especially that under its own law, the Office of the Ombudsman also has the power to grant
Just a few more points, Mr.
separate from the WPP law, which is administered by the DOJ.
Just a few more points, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Lima, I heard you on television. I saw you on television last night. You said, hindi kayo sang-ayon na ilagay sa regular na kulungan si Napoles dahil parang baka mapurnada yung balakin o posibilidad na mag-testify pa siya. Umaasa pa ho ba kayo na aamin si Napoles at kakanta at this point in time?
You can never tell, Your Honors. May I clarify my statement?
Please, ma'am.
On over TV. I was asked the question: will DOJ be opposing the any plea on the part of Mrs. Napoles to would DOJ be opposing the calls from certain sectors for her to be
placed in a regular jail?
To a regular jail? Sabi ko po, napakadali pong imungkahe yung ganyang bagay at napaka-valid, legitimate, justified ang ganitong proposal. As a matter of fact, if I may share this with you, even during the time that Mrs. Napoles was still testifying before this honorable committee, and she was saying all of those things, just denying and invoking the right to remain silent and the right against self-incrimination, I was already entertaining the thought that the next day I would be proposing that to be transferred to a regular jail facility. But on deeper thought, it's not as easy as that. Now, first, of course, that is something that, it's not an easy decision to make. That is, well, it's so easy to actually propose that. But we have to think also of the possible consequences, because we are still hoping that Mrs. Napoles would tell all, because we know that she's probably the key to unlocking the whole truth, if and when she decides to tell the truth. Benhur has a lot to share, and he has in fact shared already most and probably all of what he knows about this scam. But nanggaling na rin ho kasi kay Benhur din, nang sabi niya meron din daw pong iba na dumidiretso kay Mrs. Napoles at hindi dumadaan sa kanya. So ibig pong sabihin nun, ang talagang may alam sa lahat na ito, insofar as her transactions are concerned, would be Mrs. Napoles herself. What if she decides to really tell all, without strings attached, meaning without asking, for example, for immunity, maybe asking for certain other concessions outside of immunity, because as to whether or not she is entitled to immunity would be another matter. That would be a very contentious or debatable
Papunta na nga ako dun, ma'am. Tatanggapin niyo po siya sa WPP?
Sa ngayon po, hindi. Kasi unang-una, nasi-secure na naman po siya eh. So the first object of the WPP is to secure the
But we also know
applicant.
the effect of admission to WPP,
Immunity.
which is immunity.
That is why we need to study carefully. We cannot just acceding to that. We
Pero
cannot
ma'am-
just be saying yes, we're willing.
Ma'am, hindi niyo ba naisip na pag nilagay niyo siya sa regular na kulungan, baka mas madali na umamin siya?
Pwede rin po yun.
Kesa ngayon na komportable siya, edi mas mahaba ang panahon niya para makapag-isip. Maganda naman yung kalagayan niya. Anong pressure para bumaliktad siya?
Pwede rin po yun. But then again, the foremost consideration here is, would she be secure in a regular detention facility?
But ma'am, secure against who? Wala naman siyang tinuro. Wala naman siyang inamin. At sa ngayon, wala siyang balak umamin.
For now.
For now.
For now, she has not admitted to anything.
Precisely.
For now, she has not mentioned any name. But is that the real situation? Is that the truth? That she does not know anything? I don't think so.
I don't think so either. So as soon as she opens her mouth, ma'am, perhaps that's when we should secure and protect her. Because my problem really, ma'am, my problem here is quite simple. Lahat ng mga bilyon at milyon ang ninakaw sa pamahalaan, nasa ospital, o nasa Santa Rosa, o nasa kung saan. Yung nagnakaw ng cellphone at nasa kulungan. Paano ho natin ipapaliwanag yun na parang tinuturo natin kumbaga sa mga anak natin, anak, magnanakaw ka na lang, lakihan mo na. Kasi pag malaki, ospital ka o Santa Rosa ka. Dahil pag cellphone lang ang ninakaw mo, anak, city jail ka. Mahirap ang buhay doon. How do we reconcile that? If we cannot guarantee the life of a snatcher inside the city jail, ma'am, and I presume there are security features in our jail system to protect him also from being harmed. Again, equal protection would dictate that unless she is willing to talk, I guess that's when we should provide adequate. And I will agree with you completely. Dapat talaga pangalagaan yung seguridad niya kung magsasalita siya, kung nais niya na magsalita. I just find it difficult to swallow. The situation right now is hindi siya nagsasalita, wala siyang inaamin, ang laki ng ginagastos natin tuwing lalabas siya, and yet we're not getting anything out of it really.
I also perfectly and completely agree with you, Your Honor. But ang sabi ko nga po, well, sa ngayon, maaaring hindi siya magsasalita. Pero meron ho kaming expectation na baka nga ho magsalita. And sayang po yung pagkakataon na yon na posibleng magsalita na siya in the near future. Baka malapit na po o in the near future, baka before the case is filed, Sandigan Bayan, or while the case is before the Sandigan Bayan. Let's see if she is willing to talk. Wag na muna ho tayong magmadali ngayon. Of course, may gastos ang gobyerno. Alam naman ho kung magkano ang gastos sa gobyerno. Pero siguro sa mga ganitong usapin na ito po ay napakalaking kaso. This is actually bigger than any one of us, this particular case. Now, siguro secondary na lang po ang consideration na yon na gumagastos ang gobyerno dito sa pagsisecure sa kanya doon sa ultimate end na posible nga na sa pamamagitan ni Mrs. Napoles ay malalaman natin ang buong katotohanan.
I understand where you're coming from, ma'am. Sorry for bringing this out. Mabigat lang talaga sa dibdib ko na talo pa niya si Pangulo Aquino. May decoy vehicle pa siya. May decoy convoy pa siya. Si Pangulo Aquino walang decoy convoy. So na lang niya ginagawa siguro yan. Kung mag-helicopter o magbabaylan. Pero, no, that's the decision already, I presume, not the DOJ.
Yes, Your Honor. And we can always talk about it. We can always ask the PNP to more or less revisit the security arrangements. So kung medyo nga OA, then make it the appropriate one. Kung ano talaga ang commensurate dyan sa status niya. But for now, the government would want to be very careful. The government would really want to study this issue very, very carefully.
I understand, ma'am. Thank you very much. Last point, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Loy, bakit niyo tinanggal si Baligod? At anong magagawa niyo kung wala na siya? Kumpara sa hindi niyo magagawa kung nandyan pa siya? Quite frankly, when I heard the news, I don't see what for. I mean, hindi na kayo kakasuhan, wala na kayong kaso, nagbigay na kayo ng statement. Why all of a sudden the need to remove him? In other words, ano yung magagawa niyo ngayong wala na siya? Ano ba yung hindi niyo nagagawa nung nandyan siya? Please explain.
Sir, bago kasi po ginawa ko yung desisyon, I've been praying a lot, no? I've been praying a lot. and asking wisdom. Kasi at the end of the day, if I make this decision, ako yung magfa-face ng consequences din naman. So, kaya po ako sumulat ng letter sa kanya which sinasabi na very busy, which is totoo nga naman po, no? And this could be confirmed.
Ikaw naman mag-aasawa na yata si Atty. Baligod eh.
Ay, sir, hindi po ako nakikialam ng mga personal na buhay niya. Hindi po ako nakikialam ng personal na buhay.
But, again, Mr. Lee, ano yung magagawa mo ngayong hindi na siya ang abogado mo? Ano ba yung hindi mo magawa nung abogado mo pa siya? Rason para kailanganin mo siyang tanggalin? Because to my mind, hindi naman kailangan eh.
Kasi sir, being the client, so kailangan ko yung legal counsel kung harap po ako sa government agency, like for example, ombudsman, sa NBI, so kinukuha na ng tawag dito, statements. So, kailangan assisted by the counsel. So, yun po, hindi siya nakakapunta.
Yun
Tapos, yung cases po na mga final sa akin, kasi other than the kinasuhan kami, ako na yung nag-file against him, which is the primary case, serious illegal detention, hindi po nabigyan po ng oras. So, yung time. So, kailangan ko po yun, sir, na being syempre, hindi ako sanay na ako ang nagkakaso, hindi rin ako sanay na ako rin ang kinakasuhan. So, nagdidepende ako sa lawyer ko. So, at the same time, gusto ko malaman po what is the update. Tapos kinasuhan po ako ni Ms. Napoles ng qualified theft. I do not know what's the status. That's personally, sir. Ang aking ano lang talaga, na I have numerous cases na ikinaso sa akin. At the same time, yung the primary case, kami nagkaso. Tapos, what's this, the oral defamation, kinasuhan ako ng 3 ng Napoles group, ng kapatid niya. So, lahat po yun pending. So,
May lumabas sa pahayagan na hindi raw kayo nagkakasundo ni Atty. Baligod sa ilang mga aspeto ng iyong pagtestigo laban sa ilang mga opisyal. Totoo ba yun o hindi?
Sir, siya po dapat mag-answer nun. I'm sorry, sir, no? I think siya dapat po yun magsagot. Kasi mahigpit po na nandiyan si Secretary na nakabantay lahat. So, wala pong, siya po, sumagot yun sa aligasyon niya or hindi pa?
Hindi niya alegasyon yun. Lumabas lang sa isang pahayagan na yun daw ang rason kung bakit tinanggal mo siya.
So, tanungin po yung media. Sorry, sir. Tanungin po yung source po. Kung saan source na nag-feed or I do not know. Hindi po kami nag-aaway ni Atty. Baligod.
Sa bakit wala kayong hindi pagkakaintindihan?
Sir, yun ang pang reason ko, yung time, and I quote po yung kung ano yung tinext niya sa akin na ang dami cases na, so yun lang yung sinulat ko din sa kasi which, hindi ko alam kung ano yung advocacy na sinasabi niya. Yun lang naman ang hinigi ko time, yun lang po.
Thank you, Benhur. Thank you, Secretary Mr. Cunanan. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Escudero.